Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's much better. Guys, how is everybody doing? Exorcist Believer is out in theaters tomorrow, so I gotta fucking wing this shit. So, continuing on my Exorcist review series, here are my thoughts on The Exorcist 3. Again, I want to mention this too. I did watch the director's cut of The Exorcist 3. I heard rumbles that that the director's cut of the film was better than the original, that the theatrical cut was a victim due to the production company and all that. That the director's cut was the way that the director of this movie really wanted you to watch it. So that's just the version I watched. So there might be things that I say here and there that might turn you off. Like, what is he talking about? I don't remember that in the movie. Kind of like the director's cut of the original film that I watched. So, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, I wanted to let you guys know that I watched the director's cut. So, don't worry. Just now you know. Now you know. Starting off with my positives on The Exorcist 3 is I did like the person that wrote the original Exorcist book and who wrote the screenplay for the original Exorcist, William Peter Blattley? Yeah, Blattley. Yeah, I have notes. Fuck you. Now, he is the guy who wrote the original Exorcist book. He wrote the screenplay for The Exorcist, the first movie, and I am glad that he returned to the franchise. He probably saw that horrible shit bomb of a movie, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, and he was like, you know what? I'm gonna come back in and show you bitches how it's done. So, thank the goddamn Lord he came in and gave us this absolute masterpiece of a film. I love that he came in to direct this movie. I'm glad that he was part of it, but I'm glad his director's cut was released upon the world, that we didn't have to live the fact that there was a theatrical cut out there that was held down by the production company and basically forced to do all this and wouldn't let him make the movie that he wanted to make. I'm glad that we got the director's cut. I'm glad that he returned to this franchise, and basically this is basically his franchise. He created it in a way. Thing that I did really, really, really like about this movie, and basically I loved about this movie, is that this movie took like a different turn on the franchise where there's not really, the director's cut doesn't have any exorcism stuff in it, and I'm glad about that because when you think about it, it would get really repetitive if you watched 5 of these movies and it's just the same thing. Person gets possessed by the demon. Priest has to come in, take the demon out. It would get really repetitive, so this movie does something brilliant where it has its exorcism things, where it has its demon possession, but it's a detective story about a person in a hospital who is presumably Brad Dourif, who is called the Gemini killer or Gemini killer. I forget how you say it. I'm pretty sure it's Gemini, right? Is it? I looked it up. It was Gemini Killer. So, and there's a Gemini killer around in this hospital killing priests and stuff. And so this whole movie is a detective story trying to figure this out. And then you get that amazing performance by Brad Dourif, which I'll get to soon. I love that detective story. It's a different spin on the franchise. It's a different take on this franchise. And again, it would get really repetitive if it's just the same thing this entire franchise. Person gets possessed. Priest has to come in and take the demon out. Demon comes out. Happy ending. Boom. Bada bing, bada bloom. Like, it would just get really repetitive and really boring after a while, and I'm so glad that William took The Exorcist and just made it an entire detective story with little sprinkles of salt on there with exorcism stuff. Speaking of the hospital, I absolutely love the hospital setting of this movie. A lot of horror movies seem to have great hospital settings. You got Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, Cult of Chucky, Halloween 2, and now you got this movie where I've never had a traumatic experience with a hospital or anything, but for some reason, every time I go in a hospital, I get this weird feeling. It doesn't make me feel uncomfortable. I'm not scared, but there's just always something. The second I walk into a hospital, I'm like, something bad's gonna happen here. I feel there's like, oh, maybe because there's so many patients in there who are probably dying. Whoever, if you're watching this video and you do have a loved one in the hospital, I'm very sorry. Whoever does watch this, anyways, and if you do have a loved one in the hospital, I'm very sorry. So don't take this seriously or anything. But there's always something about a hospital that always scares me. But this setting is awesome, and it definitely fits The Exorcist for some reason. Where there's great scenes here and there with the nurses and then like Brad Dourif in like a straight jacket and stuff like that. For some reason, almost every horror movie set in a hospital, I always seem to love. Every time I like, if you just told me it's like, oh, I'm making a horror movie with a hospital setting, ticket sold. Speaking of Brad Dourif is fantastic. fantastic in this movie. And you all know I'm a Chucky whore. I love almost every Chucky installment. That's why I love this guy so much. Wait, where talk about Brad Dourif? You gotta have the boy here. I love Brad Dourif in this movie. I would honestly contend that this is his best performance ever. I loved his fucking performance in this movie to where he is apparently possessed by the Gemini killer who and apparently he's being let loose and he's controlling Brad Dourif and he's killing these people in the hospital presumably. And his performance in this movie is so great. It is fantastic. It is just amazing. It is fantastic to where he's telling us stories and just like explaining to what he's done to people. He's like, did you know if a decapitated head could still see for approximately 20 seconds? And do you want to know what I do? I grab their head and I make them look at their own corpse. Like, they don't show anything. Nothing. Like, completely nothing. And all they had to do to make that scene terrifying and scary and brilliant was just put Brad Dourif in the scene in a straitjacket, stare into a camera, and say his lines, and they all sound believable and they all sound terrifying. Like, like that scene where he's just in the whole like the whole room that he stays in and with the detective of this movie, he's just explaining what he's done to these people. He's explaining to them what's going on. It's like you believe this guy, and that just from that one room scene alone just simplifies that this is probably Brad Dourif's best performance, if not one of his best performances. Chucky's gonna go away now. Next positive is probably one of the best jump scares in horror movie history. If it's not the blood test scene from The Thing, it has to be this jump scare to where there's like nothing going on. There's like this great shot just like down a hallway, and it's just like you can see the entire hallway. You can see a nurse checking doors. You can see cops just going about. There's like nothing really going on to where what I love about that scene before it gets to the best part of that, it's just like it gets you comfortable. It doesn't make you feel like you're watching anything about to happen. You're just kind of sitting there, you're just like, oh, okay, nothing's gonna happen. This nurse is surrounded by people. She's not gonna get killed when there's a bunch of people surrounded by her. She's just sitting there, nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, nothing's happening. Holy shit, what the hell just happened? Where just somebody with big ass guarding shears or just hospital shears and just comes out and just like you don't even see anything. Like it just happens and then it just cuts away and that lady is dead and then they explain to you what happened that her insides was cut out and then like strangled with them or something like that. Like they explain it to you and you don't even have to see it. It's gory just by them explaining it. Like Brad Dourif explaining what he's done to his victims, they explain to you what happens and it's also left to the viewer's imagination what a presumably happened to this nurse. And shackle me down. Get your pitchforks and wood fire thingies ready. I would actually say that this movie is actually scarier and creepier than the original Exorcist, mainly because of Brad Dourif's performance in the hospital setting. Like I said, hospitals always give me a weird feeling, especially in horror movies. And by Brad Dourif's performance alone, just shows that this movie is terrifying. To where if I watched this movie when I was like 6 years old, I would probably be having more nightmares than I don't know Tim Curry's Pennywise or something like that. That's my mixed elements, and I can't forgive this, but I did have a big issue with it when it happened. Again, I watched the director's cut of this film, and at the beginning of it, like after you press play, it'll show you like this big title card. It's like Scream Factory is basically saying we are proud to present the director's cut of this film, the way William Peter Blatty wanted you to see this movie, but a lot of the scenes that they cut were basically lost to time. They couldn't update it. They couldn't do anything about it. So all the scenes that they added from the Scream Factory edition to where it's the director's cut, the scenes that they added to make it the original version that William wanted us to see, it was VHS to where it was kind of distracting and it was like, it went from like full screen to like a small screen. And it was kind of hard for me not to notice, but I can forgive it. I understand that they couldn't get it back in, and I would probably it would probably be a huge pain in the ass to get that footage and make it updated to where it's modernized. It would probably be a pain in the ass, and they also just didn't have the footage because it was lost to time, so they had to use the VHS. It was hard not to notice it, but I can forgive it. Moving on to my negatives, and this is more of a nitpick, if anything. And there's like this weird dream sequence in this fucking movie to where the detective of this movie, the main character, all of a sudden he's just sleeping in bed. Then he has like a dream where I'm presumingly it's supposed to be heaven, to where there's angels, there's dead people. It's just pure white. There's a black kid that apparently the Gemini killer killed and all that. And then there's like a scene where he's just rocking back and forth, hitting his head off his pillow, like having a seizure, basically. And that scene happens, and then they never go back to it. It's like you could have cut that out, and it would have no purpose to the story. It had no purpose to be in it. I want to see them like just release a cut where that never happened. There's like no point to do it. Like there's no point of that being in the movie. So if you cut it, it would have no difference to the film. All in all, guys, I loved The Exorcist 3. I loved The Exorcist 3. It was. This is the true sequel to The Exorcist. Forget about The Exorcist 2, The Heretic. If you watch the original film, put this movie on immediately. You will not regret it. So if you loved the original Exorcist and you were very disappointed by The Exorcist 2, The Heretic, please, for the love of God, check out The Exorcist 3. It's a hidden gem. Nobody talks about this movie. Please do yourself a favor and go out and buy The Exorcist 3. What do you guys think about The Exorcist 3? Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Do you like this movie? Do you not like this movie? Let me know in the comments below and we will talk about it. If you like this video, like it. If you love to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you will get notified for my latest videos. And of course, until my next video, I'll see you all next time.